the YouTube API Teams Hangouts on Air. I'm JJ Behrens. This is Jarek Vikevic, who is so connected to email, he's currently replying to emails that I sent while I was driving over. My mobile is in his pocket. You don't want to know how he controls the mobile in his pocket with my thumb. It's pretty amazing. In the red there is Jeffrey Posnick. Jeffrey Posnick, after having mastered client-side programming and server-side programming, is currently designing new sites to programming when it comes to structured web development. And then the two people there, there's Dror Shimshewitz and AJ Crane, and they're going to start us off with the first thing we're going to be talking about. And since we have two visitors, let me go ahead and ask you guys to introduce yourselves.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure stuff. Okay. Hi, my name is Alex. I'm the founder of a company called Civil. We've got a YouTube extension for Chrome that has music discovery features to YouTube. So I'd love to hear what you're working on and the Chorus extension. I think you've seen the extension at the Google Meetup in Paris. Just presented there. So I'm working on that project right now.
Great. So you saw the presentation in Paris. You and I were there. Yeah. Awesome.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Right on. Cool. And the other visitor we have.
Hello there. My name's Brett Giles. I'm kind of new to all this Hangout stuff. This is my first one. So I thought I'd just pop in and have a look around.
Yeah, say your name again.
Brett Giles.
Brett Giles. Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Turn the laptop a little bit. My hearing's terrible. We're going to turn it up and then turn it. Yeah, there we go. So the first thing we wanted to talk about is Dror and AJ wanted to talk about their session that they wanted to do at Google I/O. You guys want to tell us about what you're working on?
Yeah, so Google I/O is at the end of June. Hopefully a lot of folks can make it. What we wanted to do was introduce and kind of catch people up on all the big changes that have been happening to the YouTube site. We've been busy redesigning the site all around channels and really trying to promote YouTube as the platform for the next great set of channels. Now, a lot of developers and startups may not naturally think that they should have their own TV channel, their own YouTube channel, but there are a lot of great opportunities to leverage this platform to help developers and startups with software, hardware, or other kind of products that they're developing. So what we wanted to do was showcase how some startups and developers are already successfully using YouTube. For example, there are a bunch of startups who are doing crowdfunding, looking to secure funding on Kickstarter and other platforms, and projects that have added YouTube videos have had kind of an additional way to spread the word about their crowdfunding efforts. Also, a lot of startups can promote their products and start to advertise on YouTube. And of course, we have paid advertising products, but there are also a lot of free ways of getting the word out on YouTube by uploading videos and creating a channel that's all about your company and what you're trying to do. There are a couple other ways that we're thinking startups and developers can use YouTube. So we're seeing some companies use the platform as a way to educate users how to use your products. So doing screenshots and product demos with Hangouts on Air, like what we're doing right now. They could potentially provide office hours for users who have questions about how to use the product, or even bring together users who can educate each other about how to best use their offering. And then the final one is we see YouTube as potentially the world's largest focus group. So a lot of people may be talking about your product, showing the world how to use it. For example, every time there's a new gadget out, there are videos on YouTube of people unwrapping it, explaining how they're using the product, and just showing what they're doing with it. And this is a great opportunity for developers to see what people are doing with their products, but also to pull that content into their own channel and to have all this user-generated content being created out there free of charge. Pull that into your presence on YouTube and just show the world how people are using your product without you even have asked them to do it. So that's kind of a high-level overview, but if there are other topics or things that would be of interest, then we would love to hear from developers about how we can further customize our talk. We're just getting started on it, so it's not too late to ask us to include things.
Great, Dror. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your expected audience? What type of person do you expect to show up, and are there any prerequisites?
So who we expect to show up are startups and developers who are thinking beyond just coding their product, but they're thinking about how to introduce their product to the world, how to get users, how to get feedback from users, and kind of more of the what we call the cross-functional aspects of building a business. What we're not going to dive deep on in this talk is how to integrate with the YouTube API. So it's not going to be about that. There are other sessions that Yar, I think, is leading that will talk more about that. So it's folks at startups or developers who have their own startups who want to learn how to leverage YouTube to connect with the world through video. In terms of prerequisites, none really, although kind of to the extent that folks are familiar with the YouTube site and have played around with it, it'll make the talk even more informative, but it's not a requirement.
Great. I think I'm getting a phone call. Apparently, Yadek just finished with all of his email and is currently writing his Google I/O talks. Crap. Jeffrey, I think you and I are behind.
I know I'm behind.
The next Google I/O talk we wanted to talk about was getting direct feedback from your YouTube community. And I might have lost you, George. Did you already cover that, or I don't know if you covered both of those or not?
No, I think I was going to talk about that, JJ.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. So yeah, this is one of the talks I should be putting together right now, but I'm happy to describe it instead. So I also do not want to veer into any sort of unannounced, unreleased technologies that we might be showing off.
Wait a second. I thought the whole point of doing Hangouts on Air was to subtly leak things. I mean,
I know.
That's why they're waiting.
That was kind of a meta leak. Let me just make it known that this is one of the sessions that you're gonna want to check out, either live or after the fact. We'll be posting videos from all these sessions, so people who can't attend Google I/O will be able to watch it pretty soon after the session actually happens. And yeah, we're going to be announcing something pretty exciting that's related to soliciting feedback from developers, and this is obviously video feedback. So that's one piece. That's one hint as to what might be going on, and we make it easier for people to
video feedback from your community.
So
any way to do that?
So this ties a little bit into YouTube Direct, which is not unreleased. This is our kind of existing platform for deploying a solution that lets people upload videos from your website and lets you moderate the videos that you want to add to playlists in your own account. And we're going to be talking about kind of the next generation of YouTube Direct. And I don't want to give away, again, too much, but if you're a current YouTube Direct user, or if you're somebody who's thought about using YouTube Direct, but kind of the barriers of getting started were a little too high, I think you'll be happy after this session.
Yeah, and I should point out YouTube Direct is an open source project we have for that companies can use to solicit feedback from their users. They could post and say, we'd like, videos about such and such a subject, and all the users can run out with their Android phones, iPhones, take videos, and then submit them, and then the company can approve them, in which case they'll show up on their own website. And so it's a great way to get videos from your users to show up on your own web page. So the next talk we want to talk about is from Yadek, mobile YouTube API apps for content creators, curators, and consumers.
Right.
Tell me more about what I'm going to be talking about.
Sure, I'm sure you're very curious already. So we are planning to cover API that is useful for developing mobile applications, and specifically content creation applications, which is kind of the traditional YouTube-focused content curation applications, which is new and very exciting, and we have quite a few very interesting companies that partner with us and implement these types of apps. And then we'll talk about how to implement best YouTube consumption experience in your mobile application. We will have 3 API developers joining us at I/O, showing their applications and describing their experience both with YouTube API as well as mobile development in general. So this talk is really for people that want to learn more about what we have available for mobile application developers, and then learn from some very interesting companies that have successfully launched products on these APIs in the mobile space. So it's a very mobile-focused session. So if you're thinking about mobile development, you're doing mobile development right now, this would be a great session to attend. If you don't care too much about mobile development, then I won't be upset if you skip that one.
Can you tell me a little bit more about creators, curators, and consumers?
Sure. So as I mentioned before, creation applications are those that allow you to capture, edit, and upload the video. And so we've seen historically desktop applications, web applications that allow you to do that. But now, with the high growth of mobile, there's more and more functionality available in mobile applications. So one of the API developers that we'll be featuring at the talk has actually developed a tablet and a smartphone application that kind of works very nicely in concert to allow you to capture content and then edit it prior to uploading to YouTube. So again, the functionality that used to be confined to high-power desktops or web apps at best, now it's actually being transitioned to mobile, so you can do that from your device on the go. Curation applications are those that really help with content discovery. So as we all know, there's a lot of content being uploaded to YouTube every minute. How many hours, JJ?
60 hours every minute.
All right.
And we have interns watching those at all times. That's how we do our porn detection.
Yeah. Right. So the question becomes, how do you actually find interesting content out of the 60 hours per minute? And we have algorithms, and we look at a number of methods to do that, but we also have an open API that allows developers to innovate around it. So this is really where the curation applications come into place, where either the apps help you discover content through whatever algorithms that the app is developing, or they leverage your social graph to really help with friends recommendations. So there's many approaches at that, and we'll be talking about some of them at the session. We'll also have some interesting applications in our developer sandbox at Google I/O, so you can come out and talk to the developers of these applications to learn more from them. So the advantages that we see to these apps is they help to really find content that might be really finely tailored to you and your needs. We think video on the web it's a big business, so most of these applications actually curate content that is YouTube and not only YouTube, and that's totally cool. I think the web is a big place, and then we also are interested in really increasing the number of minutes, the time that people spend with their mobile devices watching video, as opposed to sitting in front of the TV, or maybe both. So that's really where these developers help us. Then consumers, really the reason why we mentioned that in the talk is because we wanted to describe some of the approaches people have taken to incorporate YouTube video playback in your mobile applications, for example, iOS applications, Android applications. So there will be some new interesting information at that talk. And again, as Jeff mentioned, I don't want to pre-announce it right here because I was told that this is a career limiting move.
Career limiting.
But I invite you to join us to learn more.
And I know that AJ and Dror probably have to get going before too long because they have to design the features that we're going to talk about at the next I/O. But AJ, did you have anything you wanted to talk about what's coming up at the next Google I/O, at this current Google I/O?
I think Dror pretty much covered it. I think that I'm really excited about the presentation. We're definitely going to be going through a whole bunch of great examples of people who are using the tool really well, and showing some things that work and some things that don't, for kind of getting the word out about your apps and showing people how to use them. So, looking forward to it.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I noticed that, having gone to just a couple of YouTube talks myself, the PMs are always the best at finding the most amazing videos that you can just sit there and watch. And then Yadik somehow is able to connect to every hot startup and get them to come show their cool YouTube API integration. And I'm always left scratching, how the heck did they even think of doing that? That's freaking amazing. So I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Our job is to watch videos all day. So.
I want your job. So next, Google I/O, we have a talk from Greg, who unfortunately is not here, called HTML5 at YouTube, Stories from the Front Line. Greg and Zoltan are going to give that. Jeff, do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give a quick blurb based on what they have in their session description. For those who saw our I/O talk last year, it was Greg and me and Jarek talking about the new, at the time, HTML5 video playback via the iframe embed. So this is Greg coming back again for another year with Zoltan, who's one of his fellow engineers, and they're going to talk about some new things having to do with HTML5 video and some other aspects of HTML5, not directly the video tag itself, but other things that they've been using to kind of build a really cool desktop and web mobile, browsing experience. Sorry, desktop and mobile web browsing experience. So I'm personally looking forward to this talk.
Great, I'll get that one. And we got a question from Brian. Will the I/O sessions be live streamed again? Maybe dumb questions streaming to mobile. What about that, Yadik?
So there will be a fair amount of the sessions streamed. I don't think all of them will be streamed, and I'm not sure exactly about the sessions that we're describing here. We will, however, very quickly upload the videos from these sessions and make slides available. So if you miss a session or if you're not planning to come to I/O, we'll publish the videos of these sessions very quickly. And then some of the sessions will be live streamed as well. I think the limiting factor there might be actually the uplink bandwidth from the Moscone Center that we'll have at the event. So not all the sessions going on in parallel will be live streamed, but they'll all be recorded, including ours.
Are they going to post the videos to something like Vivo?
We'll post it to Google Developers channel. If you want to watch it on Vivo, I think might be a little difficult to find these videos there, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of bootleg videos from these sessions that will be available all over the web.
Okay. The next talk we have is YouTube API plus cloud rendering equals happy mobile gamers.
Yeah, so I'm a happy mobile gamer. And what we are trying to cover in this talk is really how do you solve the problem of capturing, encoding, and uploading video gameplay footage on a mobile device. So gaming is really big on YouTube, and if you are a gamer, you know that there's tons of very interesting gaming content, anything from brag clips to tutorials to bugs that are captured in the games, and all that is very interesting to watch. So historically, again, we have a lot of content coming from desktops, consoles, and not as much from mobile devices yet. So in this session, really we want to cover how do you implement video capture on the mobile device. I'll give you a couple of example architectures that support this, show you a couple of demos, and then really focus on the cloud-based approach that we have been prototyping for quite some time that allows you to really offload some of the heavy, intensive processing from the mobile device into your data center if you have one. So that's kind of the focus on that talk.
Great. And if they don't have a data center?
If they don't have the data center, there's fortunately processing capability available for purchase. So you don't have to build your own. You can use something off the shelf.
Sweet. And then we have one called New YouTube Android Player Tools Session and Codelab. Boy, that's especially kind of vague, but I know that's an exciting session. Let's talk about that one.
Maybe I can take a start at this one. So again, we can't really go into details, but there's two things I wanted to talk about. One is, if you are building a mobile Android application and you want to incorporate YouTube video playback in your app, you probably know that there's a bunch of different approaches, ranging from embedding a web view to kicking off the YouTube app, and they all have advantages and disadvantages, but none of them are exactly what is needed to develop high, good user experience with large flexibility as far as the control over it. This is something that we're planning to address, and we'll go into details in the session. And then, so that'll be on day 2 of I/O. And on day 3, we'll have a Codelab around it. So if you come to the session, you'll learn more about what we actually are in process of building. And the following day, you will have a chance to get your hands dirty and start working with some of the content that we are covering. I did want to mention that if you are in Europe and you would like to learn more about this technology, we are planning to have a hackathon around this in London. That will be in July 6th, 7th, and 8th, so it's a weekend. We'll soon be sharing more information about it. But again, since this is the forum where we pre-announce interesting things, accidentally or not, I thought I'll take advantage of that. So we'll post some more information about this on our developer forum and on G+. But I would encourage you to check it out if you are not coming to I/O, but still would like to do some hacking with us. My T-shirt, by the way, says "Hack too," and yeah, so there'll be more information coming.
Yeah, unfortunately, the timing doesn't line up right to give a talk on live streaming at the same time as the Olympics, but can't do everything.
Yeah. Although that'll be an expensive talk because I'm sure the hotel prices and everything in London is going to go through the roof.
Probably. And then, Jeffrey, you want to talk about master the latest YouTube data API, Codelab.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into too much details about what we're going to be covering. The new or the latest
new
in the
API,
title.
and you're not even going to tell us what it is.
Yeah, it's exciting. We'll leave it at that. So we have some new stuff that we're going to be unveiling at Google I/O, and for those who are going to be attending in person, I'm going to be running a Codelab that'll give folks a chance to see things before the general programmer community, give some feedback on some new things that we have available, and write some pretty cool applications based on that technology. So definitely worth checking out if you're going to be there.
Great. And I know that it's pretty hard to get into Google I/O this year, considering it sold out in like 10 nanoseconds. If people want to follow along and figure out what the coolest, newest YouTube API is from home, what do you suggest they do?
Yeah, definitely watch the videos that we're going to be posting of the I/O sessions soon after the fact. For the Codelabs, we're not going to be posting videos of those, but I think information about what we're going to be talking about is going to make it into our public, both Google group, and we have our blog, which is apiblog.youtube.com. We have all of us on Google+. That I tend to link to all the cool stuff that I find, so follow us in Google+, and that's probably the recommended ways of doing things nowadays.
Yeah, the downside to not making it to Google I/O, you don't get all the cool toys. But the upside is you don't have to pay.
What toys, JJ? Would you like to come
I
out?
know. I'm like, and the Googlers, we never get the toys. I mean, we show up and we work, and we watch everyone else get the cool toys. Then we have 2 webinars which you can watch before Google I/O. The first one is called YouTube for Your Business, which they will start at very non-technical examples of how you could use YouTube for your business. And then, unlike Dror and AJ's talk, I will go all the way to the opposite spectrum and talk about extremely technical ways to tie into YouTube for your business. And I'll give sample applications all along the way, and I'll also be showing a little bit of code all along the way. So it's kind of like, it's the very broad spectrum of ways that you can integrate. And that's a fun talk. I've given that a couple times before. And then the last talk, excuse me, we'll be talking about using YouTube APIs and Ruby on Rails for educational apps. Everyone always asks me, what does Ruby on Rails have to do with educational apps? And I always say, what does peanut butter have to do with jelly? Absolutely nothing, but they go together really well. So that ought to be a fun talk. So we have, fairly soon we're going to be opening up to questions, and so if you want to start typing questions into the comment area of the Google Hangout, I will start doling out those questions. But in the meantime, Jeffrey's going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is using the YouTube API from JavaScript, and he's going to talk about our new course support. I think you might even have a demo, and we might even be able to see this with screen sharing. But go ahead and take it away, Jeffrey.
Absolutely. Thanks, JJ. So those of you who do subscribe to our blog or our Google group might have seen an announcement sometime last week where we officially told the world that we've turned on what we're calling course support for the YouTube API. And
what's course support, Jeffrey?
Right. So CORS is a way of enabling a service like the YouTube API to receive requests from JavaScript clients that are not served on the same domain as the API itself. So CORS stands for Cross-Origin Resource Sharing, and it works around the normal limitations on JavaScript code where the security model basically does not let the JavaScript make a remote HTTP request to an arbitrary server. And that was all well and good, especially in the early days of JavaScript, but now, we have a situation where there's tons of web-based APIs out there, and having to deploy server-side code, having to spin up an App Engine instance or run your code from, some other arbitrary server, overkill if you're primarily developing web-based API. It requires extra infrastructure, it requires an additional skill set if you happen to just be a JavaScript programmer. So I'm personally really excited that you can do pretty much everything having to do with the YouTube API now purely from client-side JavaScript. So I wanted to show off one of the demos of something that you can do now that you were not able to do before. And
pretty sweet.
Yeah, and I think that this is really just the tip of the iceberg what I'm going to be showing here. Now, the YouTube API is huge. You could do a very wide variety of different things, so hopefully your imagination will be inspired a bit by what we're showing off. So do you want to switch the focus to my screen share right now?
We can see it.
You can see it? Okay. I just want to make sure it gets recorded. Cool. All right. So this is just a sample page that we have set up here. And if you go to the blog post that announced, let me pull up that blog post too. Go to the blog post. There's a link to this page if you want to try it yourself. And what this sample shows is a few things. First, it'll show how you could use OAuth 2, which is our recommended authorization/authentication mechanism for doing purely client-side authorization. So you don't have to have any server-side code and you don't have to ask the user for their username and password. It goes through a purely web-based flow, and the credentials are entered on Google's site. So you know what? Let me just share that screen now, because I want to show people what the login looks like. I do not want to show people my password then. But hopefully this will work fine. So, okay, I'm just going to actually log in with my personal account. And so this is, I clicked on the Authorized Access button. I get taken to this web page that's hosted on Google's infrastructure. It's all accessed via HTTPS, obviously. You're not giving your credentials to any third party. It's a really nice, clean way of doing authorization, a lot better than older approaches like client login, where you have to give your username and password directly to a third-party application. So I'm going to sign in. I'm going to make this window a little bit bigger. Add that account, and then I get taken automatically back to the other page. So let me share that window now. And you can see that I'm now logged in. So first thing it does is it knows who I'm logged in as. It says I'm logged in as Jeffrey Posnick over here, and that's done via a call to the YouTube data API made from JavaScript that basically passes in my authorization token, and it gets back my user profile, and it gets back my display name. Take a quick look at the code later, but I want to run through what the app actually does. So basic metadata here, and we're going to be uploading a new video file. Just ask for the title, ask for the description. We load the list of different categories that are supported, and that category list is actually loaded dynamically as well. And I don't think this video picker, so I don't think the open file dialog box is being shared with you guys, but I basically clicked on the choose file. I clicked on choose file, I got an open file dialog box, I chose a local movie file. At this point I can just click upload. And what's happening here is using our standard browser-based upload flow, and that has existed for a while, but one piece of that flow requires doing an HTTP post to our servers and passing the metadata. And that was never possible to do before via JavaScript. So you would kind of be in a situation where the upload flow was mostly web-based, but you still had to have this little bit of server-side code in order to actually perform this browser-based upload. So now there's no server-side code at all. The full source code is on this page. I stuck it all as part of the same big documents just for explanation, just because it's basically sample code. I mean, obviously you might want to break this out into different JavaScript files. I'm not going to claim that this is the absolute best practices for doing this sort of thing, but I think it gives you a good example and code that you could steal and kind of use in your own code. So this takes care of things like you doing auth2, setting the appropriate request headers for making your YouTube API requests. It's using it's using jQuery for doing the actual AJAX calls. So let me pull up one specific AJAX call here. Okay. So this is, for instance, how it's getting the display name. So it's making an AJAX call saying this is the URL I'd like to get. It's generating the headers that include your authentication token, and it gets a response back and parses out the display name. So it's all nice based on callbacks. It's just doing the AJAX as if you were doing it against a local server, except it's going against our own server in this case. So that's pretty much what's going on. I encourage folks to steal this code, get inspired by what I'm doing, hopefully improve it a bit too, and yeah, go out and hack some JavaScript.
That's fantastic. I'm super excited about that. Client side, all client side.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and take some questions and hopefully provide some answers. Jeffrey's already providing them. So Alexander Pesson, he has two questions for the Q&A session. One, is there any music-related features in the new API? For example, search by artist. Jeffrey, what do you think?
No. So this is certainly something we hear about a lot, and people wanting to find, for instance, like the official music videos for a given account, which is somewhat easier if it's all uploaded in the same account, but sometimes official music videos might be spread across different accounts, and you just want to find everything that's, a Lady Gaga video or something like that. So you can kind of do that now based on the publicly available metadata, but you get false positives if you try to search for everything from Lady Gaga. There's nothing stopping an arbitrary person from uploading a video and tagging it as Lady Gaga. That situation is probably going to be the same for what we're talking about with this, new API. There's not directly anything new, and certainly not anything we can announce right here related to that, unfortunately.
Good guess, though.
Yeah.
The next question is, you mentioned helping businesses to interact with users. Any plans to direct screencasting features in YouTube? Yadik.
Screencasting features like the ones we were using here in G+?
I don't know. You want to talk about Wirecast for YouTube, maybe?
Well, Alex, you're on the call. Do you want to clarify what you want to do?
Yeah, so I was thinking I'll actually do things like easy screencast, because right now if you want to do a screencast for product, we just use ScreenFlow or something like that, and then we upload. So that may be good to get something direct to do that on YouTube. And the other thing is, for instance, we're using user testing to have users test the software. That will be good as well to get something, I don't know, YouTube or Hangout to do that as well with the product.
Yeah, yeah.
Just some questions.
We don't have it, kind of out of the box. We have partners that implemented this, and it's also kind of very, platform specific. So no plans right now. I think, and JJ alluded to that. I mean, we have, several app developers that implement this functionality. In fact, one of the companies that built that will be at our developer sandbox at Google I/O, showing their solution. So they use, YouTube API to upload in the end. But typically, what happens is, people want a lot more than just a basic recording. So what their solution allows you to do is, edit, modify, change things before you actually perform the upload. But we don't have anything that would make it, simple for a simple use case. It's an interesting idea, though. I mean, we will definitely pass that on to product management.
In general, if people have good ideas, what should they do with them, Jeffrey?
They could post it in the Google group. They could approach us on Google Plus also. And there's all sorts of different ways of engaging us nowadays. But they could. A possible approach is putting it in our issue tracker as a feature request. And there's a link to our issue tracker from our developer website. But I tend to like seeing things in the Google group and pay a little bit more attention to that than the issue tracker.
Yeah, Jeffrey's currently responding to the Google group. We have like a 2-minute latency. Some days, not every day. Some days it's like 3 days. When he's out.
I take weekends off.
Yeah, so do we have any more questions? We got 2 guys live, and any others? Otherwise, I'm just going to make them up. No questions. What's the best question you've seen on the Google group this week, Jeffrey?
Thanks. That's the question. Let me take a quick look.
Well, see, part of the problem with being responding very quickly to questions, as Jeffrey does, is you really have to be stateless. I mean, if you try to store any state about the questions before answering them, often it slows you down. And so it's best to, it's kind of like an internet router. You want to be routing the packets, not saving information about the packets.
Yeah, indeed. So actually, something that came up a couple of times in the Google group in the past week, and hopefully will be fixed tonight as part of our Wednesday night YouTube push, is the new restrictions that we have in place on minimum sizes for YouTube embedded players. Yarrick had a nice blog post a few weeks ago where he spelled out what those restrictions are. Basically, you need to make sure that you have your embedded player at 200 pixels wide by 200 pixels high at the minimum. Obviously, you can make it bigger than that, change the aspect ratio, but that's the bare minimum. And we've had some developers who've been posting saying, I have a embedded player that's either exactly 200 by 200 or a little bit bigger, and yet I'm still getting playback errors saying that my player is too small. So starting tonight, we're going to actually change the logic a little bit that we use for calculating whether the player is too small, and basically fix it so that the size of the control bar doesn't count against you when making that calculation. So you can't really be expected to know how big the YouTube control bar is going to be, and I think that the way we're going to address is by hiding the control bar a little bit more aggressively in those scenarios to make sure that there is 200 pixels in each way that's available for playback.
I see. And I really don't understand this. I mean, I want my playbacks as large as possible. Why would anyone want like a YouTube player smaller than 200 by 200? I mean, you can't even fit Lady Gaga into such a small image.
She will not be contained. Yeah, I don't know. There are legitimate reasons for wanting a really small player. Like I'm actually working right now on something that displays a whole bunch of thumbnails for videos that are uploaded in your account, and I want those thumbnails to turn into playable embeds when you click on them, basically, which is all doable via the YouTube Player API. But I don't want to have to I'm actually doing inline playback in this case. I'm not making a letterbox or anything where it takes over the whole screen and shows a really big embed. So I want the embed to be still small enough that it's not crowding out everything on the rest of the page.
Great. I know a question that comes up that I have to answer a lot is, should people be using the old object embeds or the new iframe API, especially when they want to mix in some JavaScript? Yadek, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a very good question. So we have released the iframe embed a long time ago. I think it's been over a year. And then we have then followed up with an iframe API. In fact, we spoke in detail about iframe API at Google I/O last year with Greg and Jeff. One thing that we're looking into right now is, what it would take for us to remove the beta status of the iframe API. So there's a lot of concerted effort to make sure that we can comfortably say, hey, this is ready for production apps, since as of today it's still in the experimental stage. So we're working very hard to make sure that there's really no need for you to use the object embed and the old JavaScript API anymore, and then get the iframe API ready for production. So I would rather not discuss specific timelines other than say that it's very soon, and I'm personally very excited about it because really what it means is that applications that need cross-platform functionality will be able to comfortably use the iframe API and then work reliably no matter what the platform is, whether it's a desktop web browser or a mobile web browser on a platform that doesn't support Flash.
Yeah, so tell me, when would the object embed not work if you're using the JavaScript API for it?
Yeah, so if you don't have Flash, then typically object embed won't work, or at best it will work, but there won't be API support. So say on iOS, you can embed a video into a web app or web view. It will render properly, the playback will work, but you can't actually get to it and control it because there's no API exposed through a Safari plugin that is implemented as a part of the mobile Safari. So while playback works, there's no way to get at the video and use it with an API. So that's really the case here. Plus, we really want to transition as much as we can to the iframe embed so that, as new platforms appear, we can kind of figure out how to offer best playback experience for them rather than forcing the developer to, go through the motions and, do some weird things with the embed format depending on what the platform is. So that's kind of the advantage of using the iframe embed. And then, if you have a platform that you work with and, you find that the iframe embed is not working as expected, let us know, because that's something that we intend to fix and optimize. There's a fair amount of platform-specific work that goes into the iframe embed implementation, but then the advantages and benefits everyone. So we don't actually have to force the developers to think about all these different mobile platforms and others.
Yeah.
Cool. I wanted to add something to what Jarek was saying. We still do plan on having the ActionScript 3 version of the Flash player accessible via the object tag. It's still fully supported, so this is not us deprecating it. And we know that one important use case for that is if you happen to be a Flash developer and you're writing a Flash application, you're writing a Flash ad, something that requires the host to be in Flash, and yet you want to play back a YouTube video within that application. You still do need to use our older player. It's not the exact same syntax as the object tag, but it is directly requesting the Flash version of the player, and you are going to continue to be able to do that.
Great. That's really helpful because I like to code HTML5 5 days a week, and then I do Flash Tuesdays and Thursdays. Do we have any other questions, or shall we wrap it up? Well, thank you guys for joining. It makes it a lot more interesting when people are watching. Thank you, Jarek. Thank you, Pong, who you can't see. Maybe you can wave. Pong is our software engineer pretending to be a technical audio-visual engineer. Thanks a lot, Jeffrey. Thanks a lot to our two visitors, and Drew and AJ, who went back to work figuring out what we're going to do next quarter. So thanks a lot, guys.
See you guys.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.